I talked a little bit about Rav Ben Tzion Abba Shaul. He was yesterday in the minyan. He's one of the bigger Sephardic rabbis of the previous generation. And I talked a little about stories connected to him, some sayings of his. So I just want to share a few of his halachas. Just a few from his, this is like one of his halacha books, but he has several of them. And some of them are interesting. Some of them show his Kabbalistic side, show his unique, his clarity and his depth and his kind of like analytic ability. So we'll basically split them into three. We're going to go through it quickly. Let's mention a few of them. So we'll start with a Kabbalistic halacha. Okay, so there's an idea that when someone goes into the bathroom, once you emerge from the bathroom, one needs to wash their hands. Now, question is it because someone used the bathroom? Is the room itself considered a contaminated place? And every time you go through it, you need to wash your hands afterwards. So I learned the halacha when I was in yeshiva as the second option. And so actually there was a funny case where I first became observant. I was maybe 20 at the time. I was 18, I became more observant. And my mother came, I was visiting America, and I stayed in a hotel with my mother. And we had two rooms that were connected with a bathroom. And so every time I wanted to go talk to her, hang out in the room, I had to walk to the bathroom. And so she didn't see me for a while. I became like really from since the last time she saw me. So every time I came into her room, I started washing my hands. And she goes, "What happened to you? Every time you see me, you're washing your hands." So I had to explain to her that I was walking through a bathroom to get to her room, and that's why I was washing my hands. So, but it becomes interesting. So he accepts that as an axiom, because that's like a Kabbalistic idea that the room can contain contamination or impurity. He says, so let's say somebody only put one hand into the bathroom. Do they have to wash two hands? So if you believe it's just a cleanliness thing, so maybe you would. It's just one hand. But he says because it's an impurity thing, the way to get impurity off one's body, like you do in the morning, you wash both your hands. He says even if someone puts a finger in there, you have to wash both your hands. That's what he says. So here's I had like an interesting halacha here. All right, he says like this. Let's say you're not like most of us where when you're by yourself, you don't have any intention at all. When you're with a minyan, it's a little bit better. There's some people who are so holy that they're like, if I daven in a minyan, it bothers my intention. I have trouble properly focusing, and I'm better off when I daven by myself, or like it's more spiritual for me by myself. So what do you think the law should be? Let's say you say, without a minyan, my davening's on a higher level. I can pay attention to what I'm saying. I have more emotion. I can see spiritual visions by myself. When I'm with the minyan, everybody's just, like whatever. I can't always get to those. So would you be able to forego the minyan in order to have that higher spiritual experience? What do you say?
Isn't there a balance between the needs of the tzibur versus the individual?
So you would say it's
necessary if you're necessary to be counted for that minyan.
Let's say you're not necessary. I mean, everyone's necessary in the prayer room. Everybody who's here adds something. But let's say there's a minyan, etc. But you think that my prayers, your prayers feel more powerful in your study.
You're supposed to daven with a minyan, I think.
Yeah.
There's a reason you can't.
Yeah, so he says here that he allows for it on a temporary basis. Where he says that because intention is really important, but he says you shouldn't teach yourself or other people that there's no need for minyan. It's interesting that he makes room for that here. He brings an example. So this is why I think he's interesting. He brings an example from like others. He was really holding like all the Gemara. Like he has a story in his Musar book. He talked about how he like on fast days or on days where there wasn't learning in yeshiva. He was a rabbi in yeshiva, so you have these off days where it's called Bein Hazmanim. And the kids, they go out, they do whatever, and they have fun. Well, he's like, this is the day I can actually really learn, because he's always teaching. So he wrote in his book that he would learn from morning till night. He wrote it in his book about himself, without a break. And some days he would get through a whole tractate. That's a lot if anybody knows that. It's a lot. So I do a page a day, and I'm like really tired. So, but anyway, so he was holding. So he brought an example from this other case where, let's say you go to a minyan, and you got in a fight with somebody in the synagogue. Or the synagogue, you had something bad happen, somebody got on your nerves or something like that, and then every time you come, you get angry. So somebody asked the rabbi, what do I do? Every time I'm there, I'm angry. So the rabbi said, you can go daven on your own on a temporary basis, but don't start doing this permanently, because other people will learn that you don't need to go to minyan. So he brought that example and he connected it to this. So it's like interesting he did that. Here's an interesting svara, an interesting analysis. This is cool. So let's say you're in. That's the last one we'll do. Let's say you're in synagogue and they call you up to the Torah. You have you got a guy gets all to this. Asher b'charban mikola. I mean, you finish reading. What's the bracha? Let's say you forgot and you said Asher b'charbanu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu. He says, what do? Do you have to say the bracha again? You forgot and say Asher natan lanu Torah emet, but you said Asher b'charbanu mikol ha'amim. Do you go back?
The gabbai is supposed, if you start the wrong bracha, the gabbai is immediately supposed to stop you and correct you.
So let's say the gabbai isn't here. Wait, the gabbai isn't here.
Well, they always have two gabbayim.
Yeah. So let's say it happens though. It happens sometimes in shtibels or whatever. I don't know. Let's say it happens. So what do? So he says that you don't go back. He says you don't go back. Why? Because you made a bracha over Torah. And he says it's like if you have to make a brei pri'ah etz. I mean, you made brei pri'ah adama. You make brei pri'ah adama. So he compares it to that case. Make brei pri'ah adama over you have to make a brei pri'ah etz. Creates the fruit of the tree on an apple. Who created a fruit of the ground, of the earth. It counts. You don't go back and say another bracha. So he connects that to that. And there was one more piece here with this. So he says, let's say you're in Mariv. And he says, Baruch Hu et Hashem Varach. And then you start making the bracha in the morning. Yotzer Ohr, Uvarei Choshech. You didn't realize it's dark outside. You made Yotzer Ohr, and you finish the bracha. What do? So Halacha says you go back. Why do you go back? Because that's not connected at all to the night. You made a bracha over the day, over the light, over God's luminaries. So you go back. So he says, our case, you make a bracha over the Torah. You said Asher b'charbanu mikol ha'amim. That's similar to the other bracha over the Torah. So it counts. It's like brei pri'ah adama. You say brei pri'ah adama over something that's brei pri'ah. It's the same category. But in a case where you said Yotzer Ohr, the blessing you make before Kriyat Shema in the morning, instead of saying Ma'ariv Aravim in the night, there you go back. So if it's the same topic, same like orbit, you don't go back. So I feel like it's interesting, like the way he's thinking, like he's comparing. He has this new case. And what do I do here? So he takes his knowledge from this field of laws of brachos, takes his knowledge from the laws of Hilchot Tefillah. He tries to figure out like what to do, and he comes out with like an interesting psak that you might have intuitively said you go back, right? Because we always scream at people when they do something wrong. Go back, but you don't.